McLaren has kicked off the season just as they ended 2024. But this time, the improvement they've made over the winter is even more significant than anyone expected. The gap in qualifying was nearly 4/10 compared to third place, and when it came to race pace, no other team could even come close. Could this season turn out to be as one-sided as 2023? If not, what can rival teams do to prevent McLaren from running away with the championship? One thing is certain: McLaren was the dominant force in Melbourne. While a single race doesn't define an entire season, the team from Woking looked incredibly strong in both wet and dry conditions. Their race pace was on another level, and Red Bull, the second fastest team, was trailing by 7/10 of a second per lap. Even in the top speed sections, Oscar Piastri managed to hit the second highest top speed at 332 km/h, while Lando Norris was 10 km/h slower than his teammate. However, Norris still delivered a stronger overall performance, securing the race win. When analyzing sector times, one color stood out: orange. While Norris was only the fifth fastest driver in the second sector, his performance in the third sector was simply untouchable. Max Verstappen was half a second slower in that sector alone, which highlights just how much of an advantage McLaren had. Gaining half a second in just 39 seconds of track time is massive, and it also means they had the luxury of managing their tires in the earlier parts of the lap. But that's exactly where McLaren's biggest strength lies. McLaren was the only team on the grid that managed to keep their tires performing at their peak throughout the entire lap. The massive gap in the third sector wasn't just about outright pace. It was a clear indicator that other teams were struggling with tire wear. As conditions changed throughout the race, most drivers found themselves with no grip left when it mattered most. But whether the track was wet or dry, the MCL39 remained in complete control. Even Verstappen, who is known for his tire management, found himself unable to match McLaren's consistency. During the first stint on intermediate tires, Verstappen initially got past Piastri, but soon began losing ground. Over time, he dropped, back by 15 seconds compared to the race leaders. The only reason he managed to close the gap again was due to mistakes from both McLaren drivers. However, the Dutch driver himself acknowledged that McLaren's biggest strength right now is tire degradation, or rather, the lack of it. Speaking about the issue his team faced, Verstappen admitted, "It was really difficult to overtake the McLarens because we were struggling with tire overheating and degradation. This problem was even worse on intermediates, as those compounds are softer than slicks. They had much better control over tire temperatures and were able to pull away from us without much effort. If we want to compete, we need to manage our tires better." Ferrari also had high expectations coming into the race, but in the end, they failed to turn them into results. Now, all eyes are on the upcoming race in China, where the team will have its first real chance to bounce back. However, concerns are already growing within Ferrari itself about the true performance level of the SF25. Team members have openly admitted that McLaren's dominance caught them off guard, and they are now left searching for answers. When reflecting on the Melbourne race, Charles Leclerc acknowledged the team's struggles, saying, "I don't think we learned anything new compared to yesterday." In conditions like these, it's tough to take away any real conclusions. But what's clear is that we were far behind McLaren and Red Bull in terms of pace. We need to analyze everything, but today was definitely a tough one. We were on a similar level to Mercedes, but beyond that, McLaren and Red Bull were in a different league. This raises a crucial question. Why is Ferrari still facing these issues, especially in mixed conditions? This isn't a new problem for them. Over the past few years, they've consistently struggled whenever the track wasn't completely dry. Given the way things are shaping up, McLaren's rise is a massive success story. Just 2 years ago, they were nowhere near the front, yet they climbed their way to the top, winning the 2024 Constructors' Championship. Now they're the favorites for both titles in 2025 as well. McLaren's transformation over the past few seasons has been nothing short of remarkable. From a slow start in the 2022 regulation era to becoming the team to beat in 2024, their rise has been built on smart decisions, strategic upgrades, and an unwavering belief in their own potential. Team CEO Zach Brown has been vocal about this shift in mentality, emphasizing that McLaren is no longer just trying to match their rivals. They're aiming to be better than them. The energy within the team is at an all-time high, Brown stated. Looking back, I think we spent too much time following others rather than leading the way. Our mindset has changed. Instead of trying to be as good as the competition, we now focus on being better. That's the biggest difference. We're no longer playing it safe. We're taking the fight to them. This change in approach has paid off massively. But there's another major storyline unfolding this season: the arrival of Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari. The seven-time world champion made a shocking switch from Mercedes, with hopes of bringing Ferrari back to the top. However, the real question is whether Ferrari has what it takes to challenge McLaren and Red Bull, or if Hamilton's best chance at another title will have to wait until the new regulations in 2026. Ferrari showed glimpses of promise during practice sessions in Melbourne, but when it mattered most, they couldn't deliver. Now, with the Chinese Grand Prix expected to be a dry race, optimizing the car's setup will be crucial in determining where they stand against the competition. Unlike Melbourne's unpredictable conditions, China will provide a clearer picture of their true pace. Hamilton, reflecting on his weekend, admitted that things didn't go as planned. Right from Friday, I didn't feel confident in the car. In high-speed corners, I was losing a lot of time. By Saturday, I started to regain some trust, but in the race it was like starting from scratch again. I struggled for most of it. If I could change one thing, it would be the car setup. I'd position things differently and make adjustments for different parts of the race. One area that Ferrari desperately needs to improve is communication between Hamilton and his race engineer. In Melbourne, there were multiple miscommunications, from the incorrect rain forecast to the confusion over the K1 button. These mistakes cost Hamilton valuable time and highlighted an issue that Ferrari must fix if they want to compete at the front. Meanwhile, Red Bull is preparing its response. They know they can't afford to fall further behind, and according to Christian Horner, the team has plenty of upgrades in the pipeline. He remains confident that Red Bull will be able to regain its competitive edge. Red Bull knows they are in a fight to reclaim their dominance, and Christian Horner has made it clear that they are not backing down. According to him, the RB21 has a much calmer handling balance compared to last year's RB20, which was known for its unpredictable behavior. This gives Red Bull a strong foundation for development throughout the season. The car feels much more stable this year, Horner explained. We don't have those sudden snaps that made last year's car difficult to manage. That gives us a strong base to work with, and as the season progresses, we'll continue to bring updates to close the gap. While Red Bull is working on performance upgrades, McLaren faces a different challenge: managing the growing rivalry between its two drivers. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri were extremely close in Melbourne, and with both drivers capable of fighting for wins, the team must ensure that internal competition doesn't become a distraction. This situation is eerily similar to what Mercedes experienced in 2016 when Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg battled for the championship within the same team. Zach Brown will have to navigate this dynamic carefully to prevent any internal conflicts from disrupting McLaren's momentum. At the same time, the Verstappen factor cannot be ignored. The Dutchman has a history of extracting maximum performance from his car, and Red Bull will rely on him to push the RB21 to its absolute limits in the coming races. McLaren's rise to the top has reshaped the competitive landscape of Formula One, but the season is still in its early stages. While their dominance in Melbourne was undeniable, the true test will be maintaining this advantage over the course of the year. Red Bull and Ferrari are determined to close the gap, and with upgrades coming, the battle is far from over. For Red Bull. The key will be maximizing their development pace while relying on Verstappen's ability to push the RB21 beyond its limits. Ferrari, on the other hand, must solve their consistency issues and ensure that Hamilton is comfortable with the car if they want to mount a serious challenge. But perhaps the biggest unknown is how McLaren will handle their internal battle. Norris and Piastri both have the potential to fight for the title, and while friendly competition is healthy, history has shown that intense teammate rivalries can sometimes do more harm than good. One thing is certain: this season is shaping up to be one of the most exciting in years. McLaren has set the early benchmark, but with Red Bull and Ferrari working tirelessly to catch up, the fight for the championship is only just beginning. What do you think? Will McLaren continue their dominance, or will Red Bull and Ferrari strike back in the coming races? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to stay updated on all the latest F1 news, don't forget to check out our next video.